The chandelier light glinted off crystal glasses as David Rossini surveyed the tense business meeting, anxiety mounting as his translator fumbled through Japanese honorifics. This deal worth $50 million with Tanaka Industries would determine the future of his family's shipping empire. The Japanese businessmen exchanged uncomfortable glances, their polite smiles fading into expressions of growing offense. David's uncle Carlo fidgeted nervously beside him, shooting daggers at the incompetent translator who clearly misrepresented their proposal. Suddenly, a young woman entered carrying a stack of research papers intended for the university department next door. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, her clothes modest but clearly purchased on a student budget. "I'm terribly sorry for the interruption," she stammered, immediately sensing the tension. "The receptionist directed me here by mistake." As she turned to leave, she overheard the translator butcher another critical phrase. Her eyes widened in recognition of the error, and before she could stop herself, she spoke perfect Japanese. "Excuse me, but I believe there's been a misunderstanding in the translation." The room fell silent as all heads turned toward her. Mr. Tanaka responded in rapid Japanese, his expression curious but skeptical. The young woman, Bella, replied fluently, explaining the actual terms of the proposal with cultural nuance that the original translator lacked completely. David watched in amazement as the Japanese businessman's demeanor transformed from offended to interested. Bella seamlessly clarified terms, using honorifics and cultural references that demonstrated deep respect and understanding. "Where did you learn to speak like that?" David asked when there was a pause in the conversation. His dark eyes studied her with newfound interest, as his family members whispered among themselves. "I'm a linguistics graduate student specializing in East Asian languages," Bella explained, clutching her papers tightly. "I spent 3 years in Tokyo on scholarship before transferring to finish my doctorate here." The head of Tanaka Industries stood and bowed slightly toward Bella. "Perhaps this young lady could assist with the remainder of our discussion? Your current translator seems inadequate for negotiations of this magnitude." David nodded immediately, dismissing the flustered translator with a wave of his hand. "Please stay," he said to Bella, his tone making it clear this wasn't merely a request. "We'll compensate you generously for your time." As Bella reluctantly took a seat at the massive conference table, she had no idea that this accidental meeting would pull her into a world of power, danger, and unexpected connection that would completely transform her carefully planned future. The meeting concluded with handshakes and genuine smiles, a stark contrast to the tension that had filled the room before Bella's arrival. David approached her afterward, his presence commanding attention despite his relatively young age of 27. "You saved a $50 million deal today," he said, sliding a business card toward her. "I need someone with your skills permanently, not just for this one meeting." His eyes held hers with an intensity that made refusing difficult. Bella hesitated, twisting the strap of her worn messenger bag. "I'm in the middle of my doctoral program, Mr. Rossini. I can't just abandon my research on endangered language preservation to work as a full-time translator." A slight smile played at the corner of David's mouth as he named a salary figure that made Bella's eyes widen. "Part-time, flexible hours around your classes, and I'll fund your entire research project as a business investment in linguistic preservation." The following morning, Bella arrived at the Rossini headquarters, a sleek downtown building with security that seemed excessive for a shipping company. Guards checked her ID twice before escorting her to David's office on the top floor. The real nature of the Rossini business empire became clearer as she observed hushed conversations, noticed concealed weapons on several employees, and translated documents with thinly veiled references to territories and protection arrangements. "You're not just in shipping, are you?" she finally asked David directly after a week of translations. The question hung in the air between them as his expression darkened momentarily, before settling into careful neutrality. David leaned back in his leather chair, studying her reaction. "My family has diverse business interests. The shipping company is legitimate, but yes, there are other ventures that require discretion. Does that change your willingness to work with us?" Bella considered her options carefully, knowing she should walk away but thinking of her mounting student debt and struggling mother. "I'll translate business negotiations only, nothing that directly facilitates anything illegal." "Fair enough," David agreed, surprising her with his easy acceptance of her terms. "Though in our world, those lines aren't always clearly drawn." He stood, indicating their meeting was over. "The Tanakas are returning tomorrow. Be ready." Carlo Rossini made no effort to hide his disapproval when Bella entered the conference room the next day. Family business should remain within family. he muttered loud enough for her to hear. Outsiders can't be trusted with our affairs. David silenced his uncle with a sharp glance before turning to Bella with unexpected warmth. Ignore him. Your skills are invaluable to us, and some people just fear what they don't understand. His hand briefly touched her shoulder, a gesture that somehow felt both reassuring and dangerous. Over the following weeks, Bella's presence became crucial to expanding the Rossini influence in international markets. Her linguistic expertise opened doors previously barred by cultural misunderstandings, particularly with their Japanese and Chinese associates. David began inviting her to informal dinners after successful negotiations, their conversations extending beyond business to literature, philosophy, and their contrasting upbringings. In these rare, unguarded moments, his intimidating facade softened into something more human. The Rossini compound, where she was occasionally summoned for emergency translations, was an old-world Italian villa transplanted to American soil. Armed guards patrolled manicured gardens while inside. Priceless art hung alongside family portraits spanning generations. It was during one such late-night summons that Bella first met David's younger sister Natalia, a fiery 20-year-old art student who seemed delighted to have another young woman in the male-dominated household. "Finally, someone interesting to talk to," she exclaimed. Unlike her brother, Natalia spoke openly about family matters, inadvertently revealing the extent of their criminal operations and the power struggles that threatened their stability. "Father's illness has forced David to take control too young," she confided. Bella's growing closeness to both siblings didn't go unnoticed by Carlo, whose suspicion escalated to outright hostility. "She knows too much," she overheard him telling David. "Your father would never allow an outsider this deep into our business." The rivalry between the Rossini family and the Morales cartel became apparent when Bella translated intercepted messages suggesting a planned territorial incursion. David's expression turned cold as he realized how close they'd come to ambush. "You just prevented a war," he told her afterward, his voice low and intense as they stood alone in his office. That information would have come too late through regular channels. Their eyes locked, the air between them charged with unspoken tension. That night, a black SUV followed Bella home from campus, maintaining a menacing distance until she called David in panic. Within minutes, 2 Rossini security vehicles appeared, escorting her safely back to her apartment. "It's not safe for you anymore," David said when he arrived at her door, concern etched on his features. "The Morales family has identified you as valuable to us." He hesitated before adding, "You should move to the compound temporarily." Reluctantly, Bella agreed, packing essentials while David's men secured her apartment. "What about my classes?" she asked, reality crashing back as she contemplated the academic consequences of her increasingly complicated arrangement. "We'll arrange for remote attendance," David assured her, his hand briefly covering hers. "Your education remains a priority." Something in his tone suggested he understood exactly how much her academic dreams meant to her, a rare insight that further blurred the line between professional obligation and personal connection. Life at the Rossini compound followed strict protocols that Bella quickly learned to navigate. Morning briefings outlined which languages would be needed, which associates were visiting, and most importantly, which family members to avoid. David's father, once the formidable head of the family, now resided in the East Wing. His deteriorating health kept secret from rivals and business partners alike. Bella caught glimpses of medical staff entering his quarters but was never permitted near. The family dynamics fascinated her anthropological mind, how loyalty superseded morality, how tradition governed even the most mundane decisions. David, though respected, constantly battled the old guard who questioned his modern approach to their operations. Her academic perspective on their culture didn't go unnoticed. "You observe us like specimens," David remarked one evening as they worked late in his study. "What conclusions have you drawn about the primitive Rossini tribe?" His tone was teasing but curious. "That you're trapped by traditions you didn't choose," she answered honestly. "That beneath the criminal enterprise is a family desperate to protect its own." The boldness of her assessment hung between them, until he nodded slowly in acknowledgement. Her value to the organization increased when she identified linguistic patterns in communications that revealed a mole within their distribution network. The betrayal had cost them millions before Bella's analysis pinpointed the source. At David's insistence, Bella attended the confrontation with the traitor, a trusted associate of 15 years. "She deserves to see the results of her work," David declared, when Carlo protested her presence at such an internal matter. The man's confession, extracted without violence but through the irrefutable evidence Bella had compiled, became her first direct participation in family justice. David watched her reaction carefully, gauging whether she could stomach the reality of their world. Later that night, unable to sleep, Bella found David alone on the terrace, nursing a glass of whiskey. "Does it get easier?" she asked, joining him at the stone balustrade that overlooked the city lights below them. "Making decisions that destroy lives?" He turned to study her, moonlight casting shadows across his features. "No, and it shouldn't. The day it becomes easy is the day we become the monsters others believe us to be." His vulnerability in that moment shifted something fundamental between them. Their professional relationship evolved as David began consulting her on strategic decisions beyond translation. Her outsider perspective offered fresh approaches to old problems, earning reluctant respect from even the most traditional family members. Natalia delighted in Bella's elevated status, dragging her shopping for clothes, befitting a Rossini advisor, and sharing family stories that humanize the intimidating figures Bella worked alongside. "You're changing things here," she whispered conspiratorially. The annual consortium of East Coast families loomed on the calendar, a gathering where alliances were formed and grievances addressed under the thin veneer of a legitimate business conference. David shocked everyone by requesting Bella attend as his personal advisor. "Bringing an outsider is unprecedented," Carlo argued during a heated family meeting. "She'll be viewed as a weakness, or worse, as your woman." The implication made Bella flush, while David's expression hardened into dangerous stillness. "She attends as a key strategic asset," David stated with finality. "Anyone who misinterprets her role will be corrected." The authority in his voice silenced further debate, but the sideways glances from family members spoke volumes about their assumptions. The conference venue, an isolated luxury resort in the Adirondacks, buzzed with tension as family representatives arrived with their security details. Bella felt the weight of countless calculating gazes assessing her proximity to David Rossini. Ricardo Morales, head of their rival organization, approached Bella during a brief moment alone at the reception. "Such talent wasted on the Rossinis," he murmured in perfect English. "My offer stands at twice whatever David pays you, plus guaranteed safety." Bella's refusal was immediate but polite, maintaining the delicate diplomacy required in such settings. What she didn't mention was the recording device David had insisted she wear, capturing every word of Morales's attempted recruitment. Later that evening, a USB drive was slipped into her evening clutch while she visited the ladies' room. The anonymous note attached contained one line: "The Rossini heir is not who he claims to be." Curiosity warred with loyalty as Bella contemplated the drive back in her suite. Professional ethics demanded she report it immediately to David, but the cryptic message gnawed at her researcher's instinct for uncovering truth. The files contained financial records showing David had secretly met with Morales representatives 3 times in the past month, with substantial funds transferring between accounts. The evidence suggested betrayal at the highest level of the Rossini family. Heart-pounding, Bella confronted David in his suite, the damning documents displayed on her tablet. "Explain this," she demanded, her voice barely steady. "Tell me I haven't been protecting a traitor to his own family." David's expression cycled through shock, anger, and finally grim understanding as he examined the evidence. "This is Carlo's work," he said quietly. "He's setting me up to take control while my father is incapacitated." "Why should I believe you?" Bella challenged, years of academic skepticism overriding her emotional connection to him. "These documents look authentic, and you've admitted your family operates in moral gray areas." The betrayal she felt was disproportionate to their professional relationship, revealing feelings she'd refused to acknowledge. "I've been meeting with Morales as a double cross," David explained, pulling out his own tablet to show counter-evidence. "We're feeding him false information while tracking his operations' weaknesses." His eyes pleaded for her trust, as he revealed the true scope of his strategy. Bella studied the conflicting evidence, her academic mind dissecting the narrative from both sides. "If Carlo is setting you up, we need proof that would convince the other families," she reasoned, temporarily setting aside her emotional response. Their investigation was cut short by an urgent call. Natalia had disappeared from a university art exhibition she'd been attending. David's face drained of color as he listened to the security detail's report of suspicious vehicles near the gallery. "They've taken her," he said, rage and fear battling in his voice. "This is Carlo's endgame. Distract me with false allegations while striking at my sister." The calculated cruelty of targeting Natalia spoke volumes about how far his uncle would go for power. The warehouse district's security cameras had been disabled hours before Natalia's abduction, revealing premeditation that chilled Bella to her core. David's team discovered the same electronic signature used previously when shipment data mysteriously disappeared from their secure servers. Carlo's been planning this for months, Bella realized, pulling up language patterns from previous communications that suddenly made terrible sense. Her linguistic analysis had unconsciously tracked the evolution of Carlo's betrayal through subtle shifts in his formal communications. With Natalia's life hanging in the balance, David revealed a contingency he'd never shared, a network of loyal operatives unknown to the family council, positioned throughout the city. "I always suspected Carlo might move against me," he admitted, his voice tight with controlled fury. Rain began to fall as they finalized their rescue plan, the weather forecast giving them additional cover for approach. Bella studied the building schematics, identifying multiple entry points while David's security chief outlined guard rotations based on thermal imaging data. A text message arrived on David's phone with coordinates and instructions. "Come alone or she dies." The linguist must translate the terms. The demand confirmed Bella's involvement wasn't coincidental. She'd been part of the plan from the beginning. "It's a trap for both of us," she realized aloud. "Carlo's eliminating everyone loyal to you while you're painted as the traitor." The pieces fell into place with devastating clarity. Her linguistic analysis had threatened Carlo's secret alliance with Morales. David's network of loyal soldiers mobilized with terrifying efficiency, gathering intelligence and surveillance on the abandoned warehouse at the coordinates. "I won't risk Natalia's life with a frontal assault," he decided, formulating a different approach. Bella surprised him by volunteering to enter first. "They expect you, not me alone. I can create a distraction while your team positions." Her plan was reckless, but strategically sound, using their enemies' assumptions against them. The warehouse loomed dark and foreboding as Bella approached, hands visible to show she carried no weapons. Inside, Natalia sat bound to a chair, her defiant expression marred by a bruised cheek that made Bella's blood boil. "I'm here to translate as requested," Bella announced to the shadows, counting 6 armed figures including Carlo, who stepped forward with a triumphant smile. How fitting that David sends his pet translator to negotiate his sister's life. Carlo's monologue revealed the extent of his betrayal, a years-long conspiracy to undermine David's leadership, frame him for disloyalty, and seize control of the family business. "My brother was too weak to lead properly, and his son is no different," he spat. As Carlo gloated, Bella caught Natalia's eye, giving an almost imperceptible nod. She'd been wearing a wire, broadcasting his confession to David's team surrounding the building. The warehouse erupted in orchestrated chaos as smoke grenades burst through windows and David's loyal guards stormed in from all sides. The aftermath of Natalia's rescue transformed the family power structure overnight. Carlo and his conspirators were detained in the Rossini's private holding facility, awaiting judgment from David's father, who had been briefed on his brother's betrayal. Bella's recording of Carlo's confession became crucial evidence, exonerating David from allegations of disloyalty. "You've saved this family twice now," David told her privately, the weight of leadership momentarily visible in his exhausted eyes. The scheduled meeting with the Tanaka conglomerate couldn't be postponed despite the internal crisis, forcing David to present strength when he felt most vulnerable. Bella worked through the night preparing materials for the high-stakes negotiation. When morning came, a new complication emerged. Mr. Tanaka's daughter Himari had joined the delegation, a brilliant business strategist whose English was impeccable, but who insisted on negotiating in Japanese for strategic advantage. "She'll test your skills like never before," David warned. The negotiation began cordially, but quickly evolved into a verbal chess match, with Himari inserting subtle linguistic traps that Bella navigated with growing confidence. The Tanaka heiress smiled appreciatively at Bella's expertise, a professional respect forming between them. Midway through the meeting, Bella noticed inconsistencies in Himari's proposal that didn't align with previous Tanaka agreements. Her academic training in discourse analysis flagged patterns suggesting outside influence on their negotiating position. "They've been compromised," Bella whispered to David during a brief recess. "Someone has leveraged them against us." Her suspicion was confirmed when she recognized phraseology unique to Morales' communication style embedded in the contract language. David trusted her instinct without question, adjusting his strategy accordingly. Rather than confronting the Japanese delegation directly, he proposed a modified agreement that would protect both families from Morales' manipulation while appearing to concede major points. The brilliance of his counteroffer became clear when Himari's expression shifted from satisfaction to realization. "You know," she said in English, abandoning pretense, "Morales threatened our West Coast operations if we didn't undermine your distribution channels. We can protect each other," David offered, seizing the moment to forge a stronger alliance. The Rossini and Tanaka families together would make Morales reconsider his expansion. The proposition transformed potential disaster into opportunity. The agreement's intricate language incorporated safeguards Bella had designed specifically to protect against future manipulation. Her academic specialization in contractual linguistics proved invaluable as she crafted clauses that appeared standard but contained subtle protections. Mr. Tanaka himself arrived unexpectedly as the documents were being finalized, his weathered face revealing both respect and curiosity about the young linguist who had transformed negotiations. "Few outsiders understand the harmony of words and intent," he observed to Bella in formal Japanese. Security footage from Tanaka's hotel revealed a meeting between their legal advisor and one of Morales's known associates, providing concrete evidence of the attempted sabotage. David's restraint in handling this betrayal impressed the Japanese delegation more than any show of force could have. The boardroom fell silent as the final signatures were applied. Centuries of tradition meeting modern business acumen in a single document. Bella noticed David's hand trembling slightly, not from weakness, but from the weight of having navigated a crisis that would have destroyed his predecessors. By evening, a new agreement was signed, one that included mutual protection clauses and joint ventures that would strengthen both families. Bella's translation had evolved into strategic advising that shaped the very future of the Rossini enterprise. As the Tanaka delegation departed, Himari approached Bella privately. "You are more than a translator to him," she observed with knowing eyes. "Your influence has changed the Rossini family from within." The assessment was both compliment and warning about the path Bella had chosen. The Rossini family gathered in the grand dining room. An emergency council called to address the recent upheaval. David sat at the head of the table, a position he'd earned through crisis rather than inheritance, with Bella seated at his right hand. "My father has made his decision regarding Carlo's betrayal," David announced to the assembled family members and captains. The room fell silent, understanding the gravity of judgment from the ailing patriarch who still commanded ultimate respect. The sentence was exile rather than death, a mercy that sparked murmurs of surprise. "We will not become the monsters our enemies believe us to be," David declared, echoing his earlier words to Bella. "But neither will we forget or forgive treachery." With Carlo's faction removed, David introduced structural changes to the family business that reflected Bella's influence. Greater transparency between divisions, merit-based advancement rather than seniority, and legitimate expansion into international markets. "Some will say these changes weaken us," he acknowledged, meeting the gaze of each family member. "I say they evolve us beyond the limitations that nearly destroyed us from within." His vision represented a bridge between tradition and necessary adaptation. Natalia, recovered from her ordeal, championed her brother's leadership with passionate support. "David protected me when Carlo would have sacrificed me," she reminded the hesitant elders. "He deserves your loyalty not just as our father's son, but as a leader who puts family first." The most controversial announcement came last: David's intention to formally induct Bella into the family structure as chief advisor and head of international relations. "Her outsider perspective saved us from destruction," he argued against immediate objections. Tradition demanded family by blood or marriage for such a position. "She is neither wife nor blood," one elder captain protested, voicing the unspoken concern that had hovered between David and Bella for months. The council chamber's ancient oak table bore the scars of generations of Rossini meetings, knife marks from passionate arguments and burns from cigars punctuating historical decisions. Bella traced one particularly deep gouge as the elders debated her fate with increasing intensity. David's father, making a rare appearance supported by his nurse, silenced the room when he raised a trembling hand. "Innovation preserves tradition," he rasped, his once powerful voice reduced to a whisper, but carrying the weight of final authority within the family structure. Outside the mansion windows, the city lights reflected off gathering storm clouds, mirroring the tension within. Security personnel moved with heightened alertness, aware that this transitional moment left the family vulnerable to opportunistic rivals monitoring their decision. Records dating back to the family's European origins were brought forth, revealing a precedent from 1887, when an outsider had been granted similar status during a period of existential threat to the organization. History supports this decision, Natalia announced triumphantly, brandishing the yellow document. David's response silenced the room. She has proven her loyalty beyond what blood has guaranteed. She risked her life for Natalia, exposed Carlo's betrayal, and secured alliances that will protect this family for generations. What more would you demand as proof of belonging? The council's reluctant acceptance came with a condition. Bella must commit exclusively to the family business, abandoning her academic pursuits. The choice represented the final crossroads between the life she had planned and the one that had claimed her. Your dissertation was about endangered languages and how they preserve unique worldviews, David reminded her when they spoke privately afterward. Perhaps this family's way of life is its own endangered culture, and you've become its unexpected guardian. Bella's decision wasn't about David alone, though their unspoken connection had grown undeniable. It was about finding purpose in bridging worlds, academic insight married to practical application, tradition balanced with innovation, power tempered with principle. For the first time in generations, the Rossini family evolved beyond survival into something with legitimate potential, guided by a student who had simply been in the wrong place at the right time. Thank you all for following this story. If you're enjoying it, write in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video, as your support is important for me to continue here.